Welcome back, Careblazer. Today I want to talk about something that gets in the way of so many of you being able to do whatever it is that you need to do to stay happy and healthy, or to get back to feeling happy and healthy, because for so many of you it feels like that's kind of been missing for a while. Now, I've talked a lot about self-care on this channel because for so many of you, when you talk about the idea of doing something nice for yourself, there's so many things that get in the way. And one of the things that gets in the way of you being able to do things for yourself is this feeling of selfishness, feeling like it is selfish to take time for yourself to do things that you need to do just for you to feel good, when your loved one needs so much time, attention, and care. And by you doing something nice for yourself, it almost feels like you have to do something your loved one doesn't want you to do, like put them in the hands of somebody else's care for a moment. It's to the point where when you do, on that rare occasion, do something nice for yourself, you can't even enjoy yourself fully because that guilt starts to creep in that you're doing this instead of taking care of your loved one with dementia. So today, I want to put this to rest. I want to talk about selfishness. I want to talk about how the way we think about selfishness is all wrong. And I was listening to a podcast recently by Brooke Castillo, who was talking about this idea of selfishness and how it can actually be one of the best things possible for us and all of our loved ones around us. And although she wasn't talking about it from a caregiving standpoint, I think this applies to so many situations based on the Careblazers I've been working with over the years. So if you're struggling with feeling selfish whenever you think about doing, or you actually do whatever it is that you want to do, like go on a trip, go out with a friend, take a nap, get a hair appointment done, go on a date, whatever it is, if you're struggling with any of those selfishness feelings of being selfish for taking that time, I don't want you to miss this video. Not only is it going to help you in your caregiving situation, this is also a really good concept for maybe if you're a sandwich generation caregiver, meaning you're caring for an older adult with dementia, maybe a parent or a grandparent, but you're also trying to care for children that you're raising. So taking time not only for yourself away from caregiving, but also maybe from other family members and other people who rely on you and need you for help, and look and depend on you to provide them with attention, time, support, any of the above. So what is being selfish, right? When we think about being selfish, it has a negative connotation, that term. There's a lot of negative definitions around the word being selfish, but when we really break it down, it's basically putting your own needs and desires above somebody else's, before somebody else's needs and desires. So let's take a look at this definition and let's step back and ask, is this really such a bad thing? Is it really such a bad thing to put your own needs and desires before somebody else's? Our gut reaction, society's gut reaction, the world's gut reaction, for the most part, is going to easily say, yeah, that is a bad thing. But I want us to pause on this and let's take a deeper look. If you don't put yourself first, if you don't put your needs before other people's needs, then how can you show up as your best self? If you're watching this video, then you are already a kind-hearted and caring person. No doubt about it. There is not one ill-willed person taking their time to watch a video on how to care for a loved one with dementia if they didn't truly have an amazing heart and want to provide the best care for a loved one with dementia. But if you're trying to care for somebody with dementia without putting your needs first, for instance, putting their needs first, then your care to that person is going to suffer. I like to use the analogy here of, let's say you have to have surgery and you're going to a surgeon. What kind of surgeon do you want to go to? Do you want to go to the surgeon who cares and loves their patients so much that she hasn't had a vacation day in many years. She is not sleeping at night because she's up worried about the next case, about the patient's health, about their recovery. She's skipping lunches and not eating healthy. When she does eat, it's maybe on the run because she wants to be able to see as many people as possible, operate on as many people as possible. And by taking time to eat and do things that are good for her, then she's taking away time from the patient. Or would you want a surgeon who does care about her patients, but is well rested, is taking time to sleep at night, is taking time for lunch, even though that might mean that the patient has to wait a little bit longer. The person who's taking vacation days, who's doing all the basic things to stay healthy as possible. Which surgeon would you trust your life in their hands, right? I'm guessing the surgeon who's well rested and eating healthy and taking time for themselves versus the person with such a big heart, the surgeon with such a big heart trying to do everything that they can. Chances are their thinking is going to be more fuzzy. They're not going to be able to be as alert as possible. That's going to be more likely to make mistakes. And that surgeon is going to burn out, more likely to burn out and be out of the game for longer than the surgeon who can just kind of keep going at this slow, steady pace. Trying to give good care to your loved one with dementia at your own expense is short-lived. It's not sustainable over a long period of time without your own health taking a hit. I think what most people mean when they think about the idea of being selfish is they think about putting their own needs and desires above somebody else's without any regard for what it does to that other person or without any regard in doing it at another person's expense. It's that second part that really makes selfishness a negative thing, doing it no matter what it does to that other person with dementia or no matter what it does to the other person. Now, let's take a look at this using an example from the world of caregiving. Let's say that you're wanting to take a trip out of state to visit a family member you haven't been able to see in a while, but your loved one with dementia doesn't want you to go. You'd have to arrange for care for your loved one, somebody to be there with your loved one, stay behind with your loved one while you go on this trip, and your loved one does not want this to happen. Is this a selfish thing? You're putting your needs and desires first, but are you doing it at the expense of your loved one with dementia? Are you doing it without consideration of your loved one with dementia? Let's take a look. If you stop doing everything that made you feel good and connected and healthy, right? If you stop doing all of those, what kind of caregiver do you think you'd show up as? Would you show up as a caregiver who is burned out, tired, frustrated, resentful? Or would you show up as a caregiver who is showing up in their best possible way? Somebody who is refreshed, relaxed, doing the best that they can in a really difficult situation. Would you be more like the doctor, the first doctor that I used in the example, or the second doctor? If you remember from last week's video, which I'll be sure to link below, if we only made decisions based on what our loved ones with dementia wanted, our loved ones' lives, our lives, other people's lives could be put in really high jeopardy, right? They might be making major financial decisions they're no longer able to really truly make. They might be engaging in activities that are really dangerous for them, like shooting weapons, driving a car, operating heavy machinery, right? Making decisions about whether, what kind of medications to take or not take, trying to give themselves their own insulin when they can't remember whether they've already had it earlier in the day or not, without being able to understand what their blood sugar readings are, right? If we just let our loved ones do whatever it is that they want to do all the time, then we actually end up harming our loved ones in the long run. That's really not any different here when we're talking about you doing something that makes you feel good, that makes you feel healthy, that makes you feel happy, even when your loved one is saying they don't want you to do those things. In the long run, is that selfish for your loved one or not? It doesn't seem like it's at your loved one's expense if it's actually allowing you to show up as your best caregiving self. So here's the point. Many times what you're considering to be selfish is actually the best thing for you and your loved one with dementia. It's allowing you to show up as your best self. It's allowing you to show up with your clearest mind, with your most patient self. Rethink what your thoughts are around this idea of being selfish, right? Selfish is just putting your needs and desires above somebody else. It doesn't mean you have to do so at the expense of anybody else. And in fact, many of the things and decisions you're struggling to do that you really want to do are actually not at the expense of your loved one with dementia, even though they may initially see it that way. It's actually to the benefit of your loved one with dementia. You get to decide whether, when you start to have that thought and that feeling that you're being selfish, you get to decide whether that's a negative thing or a positive thing. Based on this video, I hope that if you start to notice the thought that you're selfish starting to creep in, you'd give yourself a pat on the back and say, yeah, I am. I'm doing the best thing for me and my loved one with dementia. This is a good thing, right? When we're able to be selfish in a way that benefits us, we're able to show up and be selfless and provide so much better care and provide our best selves to the world in a much bigger way. And if the word selfish really, really turns you off and you're still having this really negative reaction to this term because of the way that you've been taught and raised your whole life, then just replace the word selfish for self-care. That's truly all we're talking about here. It's the old saying that you can't fill from an empty cup. You should put on your own oxygen mask before you try to assist others. That's what we're talking about here. And I promise you, Careblazer, once you can do this, once you can put your own needs and desires as a priority, you are going to show up in the best possible way. You are going to provide the best possible care that you're capable of providing to your loved one. It's truly the transition of going from being a caregiver to a careblazer. It's a transition of going from feeling resentful and run down to feeling content and accepting of your situation and hopeful. When you take good care of yourself, you're going to be able to take so much better care of your loved one. Now, I know for some of you, even if you can get over your own thoughts about whether or not this is a positive or negative thing, if you can overcome those feelings of selfishness yourself or guilt yourself, you start to have other fears and concerns creep into your mind, like, but what is so-and-so going to think? What is this other person going to think of me? What will my neighbors think, my friends think, my coworkers think, my loved ones, other family members? What are they going to think of me when they see me going out there doing all these things that make me happy, when they realize I'm also caring for the loved one with dementia? And you start to let those concerns and fears stop you. So for that reason, in next week's video, I'm going to talk about what you can do if you are somebody who is concerned about what other people think about your caregiving decisions, whether that means the caregiving decisions you're making for your loved one with dementia or whatever you're deciding to do personally for your own self-care. I think every caregiver in one way or another struggles with this idea about what other people think. In next week's video, I want to address this head on so that you can feel comfortable and at peace with whatever decision you make. Careblazer, I hope that this has been helpful for you. Make sure you hit the red subscribe button on your screen and hit the bell notification so that you never miss another video. I'll be back next week. Until then, bye.